All right. Good afternoon, class. Today we're going to go ahead and get started on the integumentary system. So this is going to be covering the skin. Your objectives for this chapter are going to be able to describe the functions of the skin, describe the layers of the skin and the characteristics of each layer, explain the factors that affect skin color. So what makes our skin color darker or lighter, kind of a thing. Summarize the types of common skin lesions, describe the accessory organs of skin along with their structures and functions, explain the process of skin healing, including scar production, describe the common diseases and disorders of the skin. So the skin is the largest organ of the body. Unbroken skin protects the underlying structures. Your body temperature regulation is possible through the expansion and constriction of dermal blood vessels. In reaction to sunshine, the skin can produce a molecule which converts to vitamin D that the body needs for calcium absorption. And the skin has numerous sensory receptors which allow a person to detect touch, heat, cold, and pain, of course. Water and salts leave the body through the skin when a person sweats or perspires. So your epidermis is the outer layer of your skin, consisting of the stratum corneum and the stratum basale. The keratin is a tough protein in the stratum corneum, which helps form the impermeability of the skin, so it makes it a little bit tougher. Okay, the keratinocyte is a cell that makes and accumulates keratin. The melanocyte is another type of cell in the epidermis that makes the pigment melanin. The dermis is the true skin underneath the epidermis layer. This layer includes epithelial, connective, muscle, nerve tissue, as well as sweat and oil glands. The hair follicle begins in the dermis and is attached to the erector pili muscle. Collagen, elastin, and nerve fibers are intertwined with many blood vessels in this level. The subcutaneous layer of the hypodermis level consists of adipose and loose connective tissue. This layer cushions and insulates the upper two levels from the underlying structures and organs. So many words can be found in the dictionary, which are used to describe skin color. Examples would include bronze, dark, fair, florid, gray, green, jaundiced, olive, pasty, rosy, ruddy, sallow, and white. Melanin is mainly responsible for determining skin and hair color and is present in the skin to varying degrees. Depending on how active the melanocytes are and how much a population was exposed to the sun historically, that kind of, depends. Another factor that determines skin color is the amount of oxygenated blood in the skin's dermis. Well oxygenated hemoglobin is bright red, while poorly oxygenated hemoglobin is darker red. Skin with a blue hue is called cyanosis. Gives that blue hue. So primary lesions such as macules and vesicles originate from disease or body changes, okay? So this is an example of a wheal. It's a little bit raised there, okay? A macule or a patch, a little discoloration in color there, okay? So a vesicle is a collection of clear fluid. A bulla is a little bit bigger, as you can see, and then a pustule is a collection of pus. Okay, this bulla kind of looks like a blister. And a papule is a solid raised lesion with distinct borders, okay, usually 1 centimeter or less in diameter. Plaque is a solid raised flat topped lesion with distinct borders and epidermal charge larger than, I believe, 1 centimeter in diameter. So this is kind of like your psoriasis type lesions. Plaque. Then you have your secondary lesions, okay? Secondary lesions, which include ulcers and keloids, are caused by a reaction to external trauma, the healing process, or primary lesions. Vascular lesions are anomalies of the blood vessels and include telangiectasis, that's hard to say, which are small dilated blood vessels on the skin surface, and ecchymosis, commonly called bruises. Okay, so keloid scars are defined as abnormal scars that grow beyond the boundary of the original site of skin injury. I have some of those like on my feet from my burn injury. All right. So your accessory organs, hair embedded in the skin is called the root, while hair above the surface of the skin is called the shaft. Alopecia, or in other words, baldness, is caused when the hair follicles completely die. The erector pili muscles pull on the hair follicles when a person is cold or nervous, and this causes you to get goosebumps or goose pimples, right? And this name comes from the appearance of goose's flesh when the feathers have kind of been pulled out. All right. So this should help you with, again, your accessory organs. The eccrine sudoriferous glands produce the sweat a person experiences when they have been experiencing or exercising or become too warm. The apocrine glands produce a thicker type of sweat and cause body odor secondary to bacteria. Sebaceous glands produce sebum or oil to keep hair and skin soft, as well as to prevent bacteria from growing on the skin. Nails protect the ends of fingers and toes. Each nail has a nail bed, attaching the nail to the underlying skin. So skin healing, this should help you with your objective of the skin healing, okay, including scar production. Inflammation of the skin causes redness, swelling, and pain, and is usually the indicator of something going on, right? So the area is going to look red because of nearby blood vessel dilation. The inflammation is going to promote healing with the additional blood in the area, which carries more nutrients needed for skin repair. If the skin has been damaged, a blood clot or scab will form, and this eventually is replaced with collagen fibers or scarring. Skin scars can be replaced with new skin, but if the wound was deep, the scar may remain, right? Stay a little bit thicker. Large scars can impede movement of joints. Okay, so you get that, scar tissue built up underneath. Scar tissue can, contraindicate a lot of things. Sometimes you can even have a hard time doing a blood draw because of scar tissue. Okay, so this is a kind of an example of your inflammation up here at the top, the redness, the swelling, a little bit of pain. Okay, your blood clots are semi-solid masses of blood like bruises. They form when a blood vessel is injured by trauma, usually blunt force, a cut, or excess lipids in the blood. Scabs, they're rough, dry, protective little crusty things that come on our cuts, kind of protect it, right, during healing. And then you get scarring, an area of fibrous tissue that replaces normal skin after injury. Oops. All right, so some common diseases and disorder of the skin. You have some common skin cancers, okay? They usually present as basal cell located in the stratum basal of the epidermis. Squamous cells is much less common and arise from flat cells of the epidermis. Malignant melanoma is the most uncommon, but is also the most aggressive. Acne is an inflammatory condition of the skin follicles and sebaceous glands. At times, it may be confused with rosacea, a skin disorder that commonly appears as facial redness and acne, or with folliculitis, which is a rash where follicles become red and itchy and often become, looking like pimples. So your cellulitis is an inflammation of connective tissue caused by bacteria such as staph or strep. Dermatitis is a general form or term for inflammation of the skin and is also called eczema. Herpes simplex type 1 consists of cold sores, while type 2 is genital herpes. Herpes zoster is commonly known as shingles, which is caused by a latent virus after a person has had the chicken pox. So burns are a leading cause of accidental death in the United States. Burn percentages over the body are determined by the rule of nines, okay? So this can be kind of important, guys. Burn severity indicates the depth of the injury with first degree, meaning only the top layer was burned, okay? So that would be your typical sunburn, okay? Second degree is going to involve both the epidermis and the dermis. Okay, so there's an example of your second degree up here on top. Okay, and then you have your third degree burn down into the subcutaneous layer. So maybe if I get a chance, I'll show you guys some pictures from my injury from burn. So some more common diseases and disorders of the skin would be impetigo, and this is a bacterial infection, okay? And here's a picture of it up here on top. Okay, looks kind of icky. The pediculosis is also known as lice and scabies, and it's caused by an itch, okay? Kind of like a little parasite that burrows underneath the skin and lays eggs. Psoriasis is an inflammatory skin condition thought to most likely be an inherited autoimmune disorder. Ringworm, not from a worm, is actually a fungal infection. Okay. And warts are usually harmless. They get just kind of big and they look gross, right? So if we were to check for head lice, this is some tips for success. You always want to have the person you are checking sit in a comfortable area where it's easy for you to maneuver around him or her to inspect for lice. Examine the head under bright natural light and use clean wide tooth comb to remove any tangles. Head lice may be hard to detect because they move very, very quickly and they're really small. A magnifying lens or glass will always definitely make it a little bit easier to see the lice and their eggs, which are called nits. If there's been any excessive head scratching in a particular area, this is usually a good place to begin. Usually, it's always been said near the warm parts of the head. So usually where the head meets the neck, right? Kind of a thing is really warm right there. Back behind the ears is usually really warm right there. Your temporal membrane runs right through in there. And so it's really warm. And so because they're hungry and they're looking for blood, right, to eat, kind of a thing, you know, sustainable source of nutrition for them, they are going to go ahead and latch on usually in those areas really heavily. Okay. That's just a trick I heard. So lift 1 to 2 inch sections of hair, starting as close to the scalp as possible, and slowly comb through the sections of hair to the end. Wipe off the comb with a tissue or paper towel and use a magnifying glass to identify any objects you may find. Pin back this section of hair and continue combing through the other 1 to 2 inch sections, repeating this step until the entire head has been checked for lice and eggs. Be sure to look carefully around the ears and on the back of the neck where the lice are commonly found. Keep in mind, like somebody like my daughter who has really thick hair and had lots and lots of hair when she was really little and going to school, when she did have to get treated for lice in like first grade or whatever, it took me 4.5 hours to comb through her hair and get it shampooed and everything. It was quite a feat. So common treatment for lice is going to be that the provider is going to likely recommend an over-the-counter medication such as shampoos, okay, that sort of thing. Medications may not kill recently laid eggs, therefore an appropriately timed second treatment is usually necessary to kill, you know, the nits or the nymphs after they hatch, but before they become adult lice, right? We want to get rid of them. So over-the-counter medications are based on pyrethrin, a chemical compound that is toxic to lice. Direct the patient to wash the child's hair with a shampoo with no conditioner before using one of these treatments. Follow directions on the package for how long to leave the medication in the hair and rinse the child's hair over the sink with warm water. The over-the-counter medications are going to include permethrin, Nix, and that's a synthetic version of pyrethrin. Side effects may include redness and itching of the scalp, right? Because it's kind of strong, chemically based kind of a thing. Pyrethrin with additives in this over-the-counter medication, it's combined with other chemical that enhances its toxicity. So side effects are going to include itching and redness of the scalp. Pyrethrin shouldn't be used if your child is allergic, of course, okay, to any sort of chrysanthemum or ragweed. Prescription medications in some geographical regions, lice have developed a resistance to the over-the-counter stuff. Also, the over-the-counter treatment may fail because of incorrect use, such as not repeating the treatment at an appropriate time. If the correct use of over-the-counter treatment has failed, your doctor may recommend this prescription. These include benzyl alcohol. This product is not toxic to lice, but kills them by depriving them of oxygen. Side effects may include redness and itching, of course, of the scalp. This lice treatment with benzyl alcohol is not approved for use in children less than 6 months of age. You want to also see splice, okay, or ivermectin. And it is approved for use with people aged 6 months or older. It can be applied once to dry hair and then rinse with water after 10 minutes. Spinosad is approved for the use of people aged 6 months or older, and it can be applied to dry hair and rinsed with warm water after 10 minutes. It kills live lice and eggs and usually doesn't need repeated treatment. Malathion. Malathion is approved for use with people aged 6 or older. The medicated shampoo is applied, left to dry naturally, and then rinsed out after 8 to 12 hours. So household cleaning after a lice infestation. You're definitely going to want to clean your whole house, right? So lice usually don't live past 1 day without feeding them from the scalp or getting that nutrition. So the eggs do not survive if they aren't incubated at the temperature near the scalp. So therefore, the chance of living lice surviving on household items is kind of small. But as a precaution, you're going to want to clean the following items, of course, and any contact the affected person had with them, right? Like I would suggest pillowcases, sheets, blankets, right? That sort of thing, because it could be there and then for up to, 2 or 3 hours be okay. And then the person goes to bed and, just connects to its source again, right? So wash all items in hot water, okay, at least 130 degrees Fahrenheit, dry at high heat, any stuffed animals, clothing, okay. Clean hair items such as the combs, brushes, hair accessories, and hot soapy water. I would suggest throwing them out and just getting new ones. I mean, a brush is like $2 at the dollar store. It's not that big of a deal kind of a thing. Most people probably throw them away. Seal items in a plastic bag. Seal items that cannot be washed in plastic bags for at least 2 weeks. Again, depriving them of oxygen, depriving them of nutritional sustenance, etc. That should kill them, right? And then you can wash appropriately, maybe air out, dust out, wipe out. Maybe you can't wash it in the washer, but you can wipe it down like a Clorox wipe or something, I would suggest. Vacuum, of course, give the floor and upholstered furnishings a good vacuuming. All right. Now, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at ejaramillo.pmi.edu. Okay. Your Blackboard assignments should be all posted today. I was having some glitches with McGraw-Hill yesterday. So if you have any questions, just reach out to me. I'm in the chat as well, or you can see me at the meeting at 7. Here is your chapter summary. This is going to be an assignment. I'm going to create a spot for you guys to go ahead and upload this. So do go ahead and pull up a Word document or, Google Doc, what have you. Type out the question. Go ahead and answer the questions for me. This is your chapter summary, okay? And then that way we can make sure you guys got a clear understanding of your objectives for this lesson, okay? All right. I think I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. Like I said, if you need anything, just let me know. Have a great night, guys.